2009, just the very beginning of early warning systems. So really, as you can see, building the full pathways to adult success sort of coordinated effort, elementary to post-secondary to their employers a decade later. And it really shows you how this work builds over time and how you sort of have to keep at it and keep learning from it. And they also were creative, like we got input from here, we got input from there, we got focus groups here. They really reached out to get that advice from other folks and not just like, well, we'll do the best we can with what we got. I think that's a really important lesson that they demonstrated. So now we're going to go to Carla Gay from the great state of Oregon and the Gresham-Barlow School District. And some more great stuff.
Good morning. I arranged for the background noise in case anybody needs to wake up or like engage in some way. It was my special request, so you can thank me later for the buzzing in the background. I don't mind it. My name is Carla Gay. I'm the Executive Director of Innovation and Partnerships at Gresham-Barlow School District in Gresham, Oregon. I have to be very careful. How many of you have been to Oregon? How many of you have been to Oregon? So it's rainy out there and it's green. And this background here represents a visual from our Portrait of a Graduate process that shows a little bit about the diversity of our students. You can see Mount Hood in the background, the green trees, and trying to sort of represent the pathways that we are on. This morning, piggybacking on what Francis and Katie have shared with you in Evansville, they got started on this work in 2009 and have been slowly building. I am new to our district, and so I have a ringer in the room, Tim Collins, who's been in the district a long time, so he can tell you what happened before I got there. So Tim, if I misstate anything, call me out on it. But we've been working over the past year to develop our own sense of early warning systems as a foundation of data, navigations, and collaborations to really support multi-tiered systems of support K-12 in our district. So this morning, that's what I'm going to talk to you about. I already have been taking notes from Evansville. A couple of things that I have noted is our connection around whole child and root cause analysis. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. That is really foundational to what we're working on. Gresham-Barlow School District is right there. So you can see Portland is here, and we're not exactly on the coast. Seattle is up here somewhere, and we're about 14 miles east of downtown Portland. That's our district. We have, well, let me see back here. We have 18 schools, 11 elementaries, those are the yellow dots, 5 middles, and one of them is a K-8, so it kind of double counts there. And then 3 high schools and some alternative programs, and a couple of charters in our district. We are surrounded by other districts. We are 5 districts in East Multnomah County. All 5 make up about the same total population as Portland Public Schools, and we're all in Multnomah County. So we have about 12,000 students in our district. We have 11, in the last 6 years, we've had a lot of demographic changes. So from 2012-13, which was the last time I could find data on the state website, to now, we have seen an increase in 11% of our racially underserved student populations, 3% in linguistically diverse populations, 1% students with disabilities, and we've seen a decline in our low-income or socioeconomic, tongue twister status, students who come from low-income families. We believe that is underreported because our state went to a direct certified process, so we really believe that that's probably not accurate if you look at the 6-year trend. But that is, but 11%, an increase in other student populations has created a shift in our district that is fairly insular relative to a metro area. People have lived there and gone to school there, grown up there much of their lives, and it has not until about the last 10 years been a highly mobile student population. And then the last 10 years with gentrification in Portland, we have seen a demographic shift that has forced some hard conversations in our district about how we're going to do better for more of our students that we have not done a good job by. So a little bit about what we are. This is our mission: to inspire and empower each student so that we have culturally responsive graduates who will thrive in an ever-changing global community. And our values and our district goals. We want each student, and my why in particular is when we say each student, we mean students that we have not traditionally done a good job serving. And so our job is to make sure that each student is an independent, lifelong learner, adaptable collaborator, compassionate communicator, responsible creator, open-minded, critical thinker, globally aware community member. And so I'd like you to pause. Well, I'm going to pause. Please just take a moment and jot down your why of your work. If you don't know your why, I was going to show you a video of Know Your Why. It's about Amazing Grace. Have anybody ever seen that? Mm-hmm. I'd love to share it with you. There's somebody sings Amazing Grace, and they just sing the words, and then somebody else sings it with emotion. And the difference is that that person who sang it with emotion knew their why. So when you think about your why, what is your passion? Why are you in this work? Certainly all of you in this room are very talented and educated individuals and could do a lot of different kinds of work. What's your why? So just jot that down for a moment. Okay. And so in our district, while we know our what and our why, our how is multi-tiered systems of support so that we have equitable access and opportunity for each student. If we're going to truly inspire and empower each student, we need to make sure that each student has access to all of the supports that are available to us in our district. And that starts with how we show up as the adults in our system. I loved the question that Joanna put forth this morning around, is this about the youth needing to change, the adults needing to change, or the institutions needing to change, or all of the above? Well, I would argue that the institutions are made up of adults, and so that's where we need to start, is changing our institutions and our adults. Our youth are going to change. They're changing faster than we are. So it's really the adults and the institutions that need to get up to speed. So I would not say all of the above. I'd say 2 out of the 3 is where we need to start. And that is with, and if we do that well, we can create equitable access and opportunity for each student. So in our district, there are 3 key elements to supporting our house, similar to the Early Warning Systems 2.0. Data. We have attendance, behavior, and core academics or course performance. Everybody has a different moniker for the C, but some people call it attendance, discipline, academics, ADA, but that doesn't work either. So we have all kinds. We also have collaborations, and so for us, that's in terms of Early Warning Systems 2.0, that's our teaming structures. How are we working together internally, let alone how are we including our community partners and our family voices and our industry and business and our higher ed partners. But we have to start with our own teaming structures. Are we actually meeting regularly to talk about data? And then the third part is, and when we meet regularly to talk about data, what are our supports and interventions? How are we tapping into our resources? Pause for pleasant interlude here. And really, the plus of all of this is that while we might have 3 elements, our plus 1 is that our future state is for pathways to career success, and I would add in there multiple pathways to career success, so that every student has access to multiple on-ramps at all grade levels in all sectors, preschool to post-secondary, and that all students have a vision when they graduate for where they're headed. These 6 career sectors are how our state groups different career pathways, So it is a visual representation that students should be able to find themselves somewhere in one of these career sectors when they become an adult. And college and career are just parts of their journey. I often say that in an elementary school, how many of you have walked through an elementary or middle school and you see the college banner of the teacher above the doors? Yeah? What I would love to see is more the pathway of the people for those above the doors. Because our pathways are not linear. And especially if you're a CTE teacher who was a construction worker and then you got into education later in life, that's a different pathway. But we tell our kids that the pathway is 4 years of high school, 4 years of college, then you get a job, then you buy a house, blah, 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 blah. When in fact, that is actually not the typical path for the vast majority of people. And we need to communicate a much broader array of ways in which we help our young people find adult success. And so the multiple path ramps, on-ramps, and then the multiple off-ramps into a variety of options is really our vision. And equity is the through line. And when I say equity, I don't mean just diversity. I mean equitable access and opportunity and outcomes for each student based on their own path that allows them to become a successful adult. So where to start? This is overwhelming, and it's overwhelming. Our district has about 12,000 students. It's overwhelming. We don't have a very big office, central office staff, although folks in our schools might disagree. We have really big classrooms in some of our schools. So it's really hard. I get a lot of feedback from our administrators saying, we have too much on our plate, and this just feels like one more. And so our job is to help them figure out where that entry point is in their schools. So the first thing we did was, like any good educator, we, in order to implement this, we implemented a self-assessment tool. We found the MTSS Florida self-assessment tool. Have any of you heard of that? Some of you may have. There are many tools out there. PBIS has the Swiss and the Fidelity, the FIT and the FIA. There's RTI, which also has its own self-assessment tool, or Fidelity implementation tool. We found this one because there's 36 points and it's very easy in the rubric. But regardless, it's super important to self-assess. Like, where are you in the process? That one of their domains is leadership. This is just an example. There are many others. So we asked each of our administrative teams in our district this year to self-assess on a scale of 0 to 3 on these 36 elements. Where are you in this process? No judgment. This is not an evaluation. This is an opportunity for self-reflection. And one thing that became clear that emerged is from this self-assessment was that we had very disjointed data across the district. And in addition, we were tracking our interventions and supports in multiple systems. In Swiss, in spreadsheets, lots of spreadsheets. How many of you track your actions with kids in spreadsheets or Google Sheets? Like document them, you're sitting in a team meeting, you're putting them in there. That's a lot of what we were doing. And it became very hard just to progress monitor. Is what we're doing making an impact? So we hear a lot of people say, well, we're doing that, okay, and it's not bearing a shift in outcomes for our kids. So we needed a tool to do that. We knew we needed to get to a single data dashboard that pulled together our data in a way that we could view the whole child versus parts of the child. And in other words, we wanted a comprehensive way to view the ABCs. We also wanted an intervention tracking tool because it's very hard to be looking at your data in one place and then flipping to your spreadsheet and saying, wait, okay, now where is that student that we just did? Or flipping to another database to track what you're doing with this student. So you're flipping back and forth. And it's very difficult to then monitor and see your data change over time. So we knew that an intervention tracking tool embedded in a data monitoring system was really a foundational element for us. And we also like Evansville, recognized that the attendance and behavior and core academics are the tip of the iceberg. You all seen the tip of the iceberg? And then beneath the iceberg is the root cause. What else might be going on for that student that is causing poor attendance or discipline issues or poor academics? And so some of what we're hoping to gather through school climate surveys is an understanding of how students feel when they walk in our buildings and how our teachers and staff feel in those spaces, so that we can start to understand that perspective and understand what we might do to address the school climate. We've also augmented that with doing improvement science, where we've done some empathy interviews. How many of you have done empathy interviews with students? It is powerful to talk to students versus sitting in a room with adults and trying to figure out what we're going to do. Pick 5 random students, your highest achieving and your most struggling, and then go ask them how they feel about school. Go ask them how they feel about their classrooms. Go ask them how they feel about their teachers. And if they have an authentic relationship with you, I can promise you they'll tell you. And it oftentimes is very different than what the teachers believe is going on. We as adults think that there's something to be fixed with the kids, but what you hear from the kids is that it's the adults that need to change. So there's a disconnect in terms of our action as adults and what the kids are expecting of us. And that's a great starting place to, as Brene Brown says, have a rumble with your colleagues. Where are we going to do this real work? And that means being vulnerable and actually admitting that we don't know what we thought we knew. So data can be a powerful mover. What I'd like you to do now is turn and talk at your table. What data systems do you use? Are they effective? We already heard from Evansville. They've got a great data system and they're launching new stuff. What do you need to make it better? So please take a moment to talk about what data you're using and how you're using it and what systems you need to make it better. Okay, so the system that we chose is Panorama Student Success, because it has, and Zan is in the back, this is what we chose. Thanks for being here, Zan. But this gives us a holistic view of our student platform. We're still working through onboarding it. We just started it this year. It has an intervention tracking tool, and it has the social emotional school climate data survey. So we're just at the beginning stages of getting familiar with this and using it as a data tool. We do also have Synergy, which is our student information system, and we also use our state CTE dashboard. Robin Deloge back there is our CTA dashboard that our state collects some data on. So we have other multiple data sources. We just knew that we needed one place where we could also then track our interventions. So while having clear data in a usable format was a critical first step for us, we knew data alone wouldn't move the dial. So our self-assessment also told us that we were particularly weak on consistent collaboration or teaming structures. So you have to have teams, because data, you're either admiring the problem unless you have people with a protocol sitting around actually talking about what you're going to do about that data. And if you're just sitting you and one other person in a room, that's not a team, because then you're solving things in isolation. You don't have multiple perspectives at the table. You need people with different job roles, consistently meeting, ideally a couple times a month, but at a minimum every 6 weeks, so you can progress monitor kids and look at what your actions are. And that teams were a critical element missing for us, especially at the secondary level. Our elementaries had been using some version of PBIS for a while, so they were pretty accustomed to doing some of that teaming, although not at Tier 1. Everything was about student intervention teams. And so what we really are working on with our school leaders is how do you set up your building leadership team to look at your school-wide data first. We don't need to go to individual student interventions until we look at what practices and how we are creating a warm, welcoming, and engaging environment for all of our students. And so it's really hard not to play individuals, because that's where we see individual kids struggling. but we really are trying to push them to just practice talking about data in their leadership teams. And that is where we are. If we had time, I would suggest that you turn and talk again about how your teaming processes are. But I'm going to move past that. And I have a handout for you that gives you a summary rubric of the tiered meeting structures that allows you to sort of self-assess your own teaming structures in your own buildings or in your own environments to see where does your teaming need to take place. And then you can have a conversation again at your table around how you're using data and your teaming to drive your interventions, or what we might call navigations. Navigations are the third part of this machine, and they're critically important to know what actions best turn the lever for change for students in order to have these navigations work. They must be timely, research-backed, and culturally responsive, and this all goes back to using data in teams. So in your own tables now, I'm going to actually pass something out, let you talk for a minute, and then I'll wrap it up with one more shot. And so please turn again at your tables and have a conversation while I hand this out of what elements do you need to focus on. Is it teaming? Is it data? Or is it your interventions? And I would encourage you to think about your tier 1 or your school-wide efforts first while I hand this out to you. So go ahead and continue your conversation. What I just handed out to you is a very simplified version of a rubric. There's a lot more detail. I'm sure you can note missing elements. But it's a good starting place for where you all are in your, it's a good starting place to have a very high level conversation.
The intention is to go into this conversation.
And so it's a very good starting place. You can take this to kind of self-assess. On the back is an action plan. And so if you want to take notes based on your self-assessment around what you might want to do, this is a tool for you. And again, this tool is intended to lead us to this future state of pathways to career success. And then I'd like, if I can spare one piece around what we're doing around student voice with pathways to career success, and I'll close out with that.